Jagdish ji.
Friends, welcome to another special edition of Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga, on our Virat Hindustan Sangam channels. As you are aware, today is our special edition on Netaji Subash Chandra Bose, and today is also our 25th edition after we started this daily program at 8 p.m. And we thank our viewers for their tremendous response. Every day, the last 2 days, our viewership is exceeded 1 lakh viewers for the last two programs. So we thank our viewers. Today we have with us Major General Dr. G.D. Bakshi, who besides being army veteran, having won the Sena medal and the Vishishta Seva medal, he has been an impact veteran and has participated in numerous military exercises and has even taken part in counter-terrorist operations. Besides being a military man, he is an academician, having taught in various army institutions, and he has got a master's degree and now a PhD on the various subjects related to the military operations. He is a scholar, having written numerous books, and not only has he written on military operations and counter-terrorism, he has written two books, one in English and one in Hindi, on Netaji Subash Chandra Bose. So he is an intellectual TV star and public crusader, and we welcome him to the show. And if, in fact, if we think about anything on Subhash Chandra Bose, the first person name today which comes to our mind besides Dr. Swamy is General Bakshi. So our other, thank you and welcome to the show, General Bakshi. Namaste. Another person, as usual, who's on our show is Dr. Subramaniam Swamy. And as you all know, he too has written extensively on and spoken virtually from 1977 on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Perhaps we'll hear it in his own words, the mystery of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose's death and what all he knows about Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So again, we start, and I would first request General Bakshi to give his views on Netaji, what he thinks about the jealousies of Nehru, and what happened about his mystery about his death and disappearance. So, without much of anybody's time, General Bakshi, please enlighten us on our great hero, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is a privilege to be on the same program as Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, whom I respect so very much. I would just like to state that India, if we are free today, it is simply and simply because of the efforts of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and his Indian National Army. Let me state in unequivocal terms that the so-called Quit India movement launched by Mahatma Gandhi in 1942 had been crushed decisively. It had failed dismally. And the fact is that had it not been for Bose and his INA, they may have lost the battles of Imphal and Kohima. They won the war for India's independence because immediately after this, when the British, to rub the salt in our wounds, held the trials at the Red Fort of 3 INA officers, the whole country exploded. There were riots in Kolkata, riots in Delhi, Mumbai, Lahore, and on all major towns and cities of India, where when the police opened fire, the crowds would not stop. But that was not all. In February 1946, there was a revolt in the Royal Indian Navy, a full-scale revolt out of 80 ships, 79 ships, there were revolts. The Union Jack was brought down. The sailors openly defied their British officers. marched through the streets of Mumbai and Karachi with photographs of Netaji shouting Jai Hind. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. The British decided that they had to go, if they had to go in one piece, it was better to get the hell out of India as fast as possible. Auchinleck had said that they had time till 48, but Mountbatten speeded it up by 1 year and they left 15th August 1947. But the pity was you had gotten your freedom because of Netaji Subash Chandra Bose, but very cleverly, the British handed over power to the Congress dispensation, which had done nothing to achieve it apart from collaborating with the British. And even in the Congress dispensation, they edged out Mahatma Gandhi. They put Nehru center stage because he had proved to be the most loyal of them all to the British Raj. And the power was handed over to a dispensation which had collaborated with the British. Now, to get political legitimacy, the kind of narrative that Nehru and his minions tried to peddle was that India had gotten her freedom only and only because of Nehru and Gandhi and their non-violent struggle. It was essential for them to put under the carpet the role of Netaji and also the role of the INA. And Mountbatten was retained as the first Governor General. And he, in turn, the first order that he passed was not one member of the INA would be taken back into the Indian army. It was in the Pakistan army. Even Singapore gave employment to these people. But it was only in India that this was done. And a very methodical effort was launched to wipe out the legacy of Bose. The Japanese, to help Bose escape, had put out the narrative of a fallacious air crash. On that particular day in Formosa, there is no record of an air crash. The initial, inquiry commissions did not even go to Taiwan, right? He had escaped to Manchuria along with General Shedei, and from there he had gone to Russia to continue the struggle. The fact is, the British very cleverly took advantage of this narrative, which was created to help Netaji escape to Russia to bury him forever. The Nehruvian government went out of the way to prove that he had died, and the British, meanwhile, put pressure on Stalin because of their wartime relationship to incarcerate Netaji, and that is where we believe he died. There is a conspiracy to create a false narrative to justify the rule of Nehru, to justify Nehru becoming the prime minister. And his first effort was to wipe out every memory of Netaji, and his fake commissions were put through to try and justify this narrative. I think we have very seriously let down the man because of whom we are free. And if he met his end in some Russian dungeon, some torture cell, I think the Indian people, each and every one of us, is guilty of our conspiracy of silence. I hope that silence will be broken today.
Thank you, thank you, General Bakshi, for that introductory remarks. I would now request Dr. Swamy to please tell us something about the mystery and what he knows and what he has discovered. Then we'll have a further discussion on the topic.
Yes, I'll not go chronological order. First of all, I agree with everything General Bakshi said. That Subash Bose was the reason why the British left. It was not because of Quit India. After all, you must remember Britain was amongst the Allies, as part of the Allies. They won World War II. And the entire Congress was demoralized by 1945. 44, they were crushed. My father-in-law was ICS, and he told me how it was pathetic to see all these people. Even public was afraid to give them a glass of water. The Congress volunteers. That was their position. And what happened is this: that the confirmation of what General Bakshi has said is this, that the Prime Minister of that period, Labour Party Prime Minister Clement Attlee, came to India in 1953 as ex-Prime Minister, as a guest of the then Chief Justice of the Calcutta High Court, who was also acting governor at that time. And he invited him to speak and address a meeting. And at dinner with a lot of people present, he asked Attlee, why after winning World War II, you felt it necessary to leave India and go? Especially when the fact is that Congress party was absolutely in a wrecked position. Was it the fear of Gandhi's possibility of Gandhi reviving the movement, or something else? So he said, no, 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 Gandhi had nothing to do with it. We had respect for him, and we are grateful he was around, so we could hand the power to him and leave without being chased out of the country. What really bothered us is something we have been saying for a large number of years, and I've seen books of 1895 written by visiting British scholars, which say that Britain has one determination: the day the British army, which is loyal to the British, decides to revolt, we will not be able to keep India in control. We are too few, and we can't come all the way in numbers to meet the large population of India. And that determination went through from government to government. And so when Subash Bose came and we saw this INA and this spread and this revolt and whatever now General Bakshi has described, we made a decision that we will leave. And the question was how to leave, of course, to hand it over to Gandhi, but also to break up India to as many pieces as possible. And that is why they declared 600 Rajas and Nawabs as independent countries. And the remaining proportion of was the portion of India, which was two-thirds, one-third having gone out, two-thirds they divided between India and Pakistan, and left because they said, Attlee said, we could not take any more chances, because according to me, he didn't say so, in 1945, in 1946, 1947, they knew Subhash Chandra Bose is alive. How do I know that they knew? I know because when I was Commerce Minister and Law Minister in Chandrasekhar's government, one day he told me the Japanese are pressing for the return of the ashes in Rinpoche temple, which they say that it was put there claiming that it was Subhash Chandra Bose's ashes. When the news of Subhash Bose's air crash was announced, it was not announced by the then Japanese government. It was announced by a wire service, and it was obviously organized. And of course, Japan had by then lost was in the process of losing the World War II, which they finally lost after the atom bomb was put on in August. Therefore, the Japanese government said, we have no evidence that this is his, but this is what has been held to be so. So why don't you take it away? So Chandrasekhar asked me, would I investigate the matter and give him a recommendation? So I found even our civil servants, they were of the view that will cause a huge controversy, because the general opinion is that Subhash Bose is not dead, or certainly didn't die at that time. and therefore unnecessary controversy will go. So we tell them to just keep it and say we are not interested at this moment of time to take it back, to take it back to our country. So therefore, at that time, I asked Chandrasekhar, I need to see some of the secret files. So he sent me 3 files out of some, I think there were hundreds. And and then I asked him, why don't you show me the others? He said, "Tum badmash ho, tum fir uski publicity karoge." So he didn't give me, but the 3 files he gave me, one had a, statement of a man called Shamlal Jain of Meerut. He was the stenographer of Jawaharlal Nehru. And he has, in a evidence which he gave to the Khosla Commission, which Khosla Commission put it in the appendix, but did not refer to it in the report at all. And that Shamlal Jain says that on December 26, 1945, that is well after August 18th, 1945, when Bose had been declared dead by the wire service. He said on 26th December 1945, I got a phone call at late night, and I had got into my pajamas and was preparing to go to sleep. And Jawaharlal Nehru said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm about to go to sleep." He said, "Come right away, bring your typewriter, a carbon paper, and 2 sheets of paper, so of white paper." So he said, "Can I come tomorrow? Because I'm, already asleep, and it'll be difficult for me to find a taxi." Because Nehru had called him to Daryaganj, where, along with one of the Congress leaders, he was using that for the purpose of the INA, on the question of INA and their prosecution. And so he said, "No, you come find some way." And so he said, I luckily found a taxi, and I went to Daryaganj. When I walked in, I saw Jawaharlal Nehru pacing up and down, smoking a cigarette. And he saw me and he said, "Have you brought your typewriter?" He said, "Yes, I have got it in my bag, in my suitcase, which I brought with me. And I've got paper, everything, I'm ready." He says, "Okay." He made him sit down, and then he took a piece of paper from his pocket and gave it to this Shamlal Jain and said, "Will you type this starting with 'Dear Mr. Attlee'?" And so I saw that paper. There were 2 pieces actually. One was a Russian language piece of paper, something was written in Russian, and the other was an English translation. So I was not Nehru. After I typed this, the English translation in Attlee's letter, he snatched those 2 pieces of paper from me. So I'm now telling you, that is, he told Khosla Commission from memory, and that was there in the file which I read, and I made a copy of that. I've still got it with it. And so what did it say? It says it was an information from Stalin saying, "I have got Subash Chandra Bose in my custody. What do you want me to do with him?" This is what he remembers from his memory. So when he reproduced it from his memory for the Khosla Commission, which was much later, probably in the 50s, he made some spelling mistakes on the address of Attlee and so on. They are minor mistakes, but people are only using that to say, no, this is not genuine. What he said is, and because anyway his affidavit is there before Khosla Commission, in that Jawaharlal Nehru's dictation was to Attlee, "That rascal Stalin has got Subhash Chandra Bose in his custody as we suspected. And he now wants to know what is to be done with him. He's asking me. I am asking you that it is you who declared him as a war criminal, and therefore you must deal with this matter most appropriately from your point of view. So Nehru, instead of saying that we should put pressure on him to send back Subhash Chandra Bose, he is actually indirectly telling Mr. Attlee that get rid of him. He is your war criminal. So after that, it's a series of surmise. I've talked to one Russian whose name I will not give, and I'm hoping one day that Putin, if you have a sufficiently tough prime minister on this matter, I mean, we have a tough prime minister today, but he has not been tough on this matter. Putin will give us the file. It is there with him. He is presently all playing, giving newspapers all kinds of stories, which all the Russians do anyway. This dictatorship of Russia is famous for that. So what happened is that Subhash Chandra Bose was killed by Stalin, and it was not immediate because I think Stalin wanted to extract something from Nehru, a allegiance to the Soviet Union, which he did get from 1950 onwards. And this pro-Soviet behavior of Nehru and Indira Gandhi is largely because of this secret that the Russians have. Anyway, that's another matter. The fact is, if I may take another 2 minutes, that Subhash Chandra Bose was alive. He from Saigon, when he was last seen, he created a myth that he was going back to Tokyo via Taiwan, but actually he went to Darien, and there he was. There was part of Manchuria, and Manchuria was under the Soviets. The Soviets sent him a car and an escort, and they took him to Russia. When I was in Darien, Jagdish had also come with me. I asked them whether they, in advance, I sent a message to the Chinese that whether you have any files on it. They said all the files were taken away by the Russians because after they evacuated from Manchuria and went back after World War II. So they didn't have anything. So now we now know for sure that Subhash Chandra Bose didn't die in Taiwan. Subsequently, the CIA was contacted by Justice Mukherjee Commission during the NDA period of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and the CIA said that yes, we took control of Taiwan from September 3rd, 1945, and we have some all the records of hospitals, airports. There was no record of any plane crash, and there was no record of any charred bodies in any hospital in Taipei, which is the capital of Taiwan. So that also got exploded. So therefore, it is quite clear that Subhash Chandra Bose didn't die. Now, obviously, Nehru knew that if Subhash Bose came back, he would be a hero, and even their soldiers were heroes. What to talk about Subhash Bose coming back? He's the one who maintained the spirit of our independence. In 1943, October 21st, if General Bakshi can correct me if I'm wrong, he unfurled the flag and he sang a more patriotic version of the Jana Gana Mana, because the Jana Gana Mana has all kinds of references which are traced to King George III or whatever, whoever came around 1911, but he made it much more India-centric wording, and they sang, And so Subhash Bose thrilled the Indian people by unfurling the Indian flag in Andamans, in Imphal, in Nagaland, these places, even if he lost. But for those temporary, the spirits were high. And so I think this is a gross crime against the nation, a betrayal of the worst kind, and we need to go into this question with thoroughness. Some of the files have still not been released, and I hope that Narendra Modi's government will release those also. It will implicate a lot of people, might be an embarrassment for some people, but the fact is that we need to know the truth. There's one other small thing I will say. Subhash Chandra Bose had sent his entire treasury to Tokyo by another means after Saigon, and those were kept with the Japanese after the World War II was over and the new government came, and India did not ask for reparations from Japan for all the what the country was asking for. They said no, we won't take. Japan gave refuge to Subhash Chandra Bose, not asked for that. And so, out of gratitude, an officer by the name ICS officer Damle, K.R. Damle, he was on a study tour in California. He received a telegram from Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru told him immediately go to Tokyo. He protested, but he said this is an order, and he went to Tokyo. In the plane that he was sitting, which arrived, the ambassador came on the plane and took him to another British Airways plane which was going to Delhi. And when he went to it was called BOAC at that time, the first two rows were removed so that two big caskets could be put there. And the ambassador told him, you have to hand this to Jawaharlal Nehru. When the plane reached Delhi, R.K. Nehru came on into the plane, took this officer Damle and the two trunks and went to Jawaharlal Nehru's Teen Murti house, where this is Damle himself told me this, and I made Moraji Desai speak to Damle about it, and Damle confirmed what he had told me. And Damle was a friend of my father-in-law who's ICS, so they were buddies in the ICS. So he was very forthcoming with me. He said, I've never told this to anybody. I am now telling you. And then he told Moraji. And that trunk was put in Jawaharlal Nehru's residence for 1 full year before it was forwarded to the archives. And when Damle reached there and Jawaharlal Nehru found these caskets had big locks, he said, "You got the key?" He said, "No." So Jawaharlal Nehru himself was prepared with a hammer. He broke the lock, opened it. It was all rubies, diamonds, all kinds of jewels, which the Indian people had given to Subhash Chandra Bose for the INA. And then he was to go. And later on, Moraji Desai made on my intervention. And this is an answer to Parliament of H.V. Kamath, where Moraji says that the trunks, after spending 1 year in Teen Murti House, went to External Affairs Ministry, and then after another 1 year, went to the archives, and it has been inspected. Moraji himself inspected it because I know it firsthand. And when they opened the casket in the archives, it was nothing but rocks, mud, sticks like that. That means the entire thing had been emptied and taken over by the Nehrus. And these are all documented facts. So this is the thing. I won't perceive doing, but this is a mystery which every generation, until it is done, should not rest. We need to know who killed Subhash Chandra Bose, and that should be made public. Over to you, General.
Thank you, sir. I fully go along with this, and what we have done research. You see, so far we were told that it is only the one solitary statement by Prime Minister Attlee, and people were trying to question. So we sent Professor Day to London to do research in the transfer of power archives. We identified the key decision makers of that era, 45 to 1950. And starting with Prime Minister Attlee down to the Viceroy, Field Marshal Wavell, the Commander in Chief, Field Marshal Auchinleck in India of the British Indian Army, Pethick Lawrence, Secretary of State for India, the governors of the various provinces. We identified the key decision makers and went through their correspondence. Now we have published this, sir, and which Dr. Subramaniam Swamy was kind enough to release. We have not just cited that correspondence, we have photocopied it and put it verbatim into that book, Bose or Gandhi, Who Made India Free. It is transparent as hell now. I mean, it can't get clearer that the British, people who key decision makers are saying we left only and only because of Nehru. And at that time, may I remind people that 2.5 million Indian soldiers were being demobilized. And there were just 40,000 white troops, British soldiers. The British were so worried, so scared that they had made plans to fly out British officers and other ranks and their families. There were plans called Operation Gondola to get them to particular airfields and to particular seaports, and from there fly them out. This was the degree of panic. This was the degree of panic, and this is how you become free. I'll just add a few details, sir, to what you have said. The Japanese intelligence agency Kampetai was given the task of trying to help Netaji Subash Chandra Bose to escape to Russia and carry on the war. The Kampetai is the one who created that false story, and that's why it was planted in the news agencies. It was not an official Japanese government release. And they had managed to get him to Manchuria, as you very rightly said. He had landed there along with Lieutenant General Shedei. Shedei was a Russian-speaking general, and he was sent along to be able to translate and help Bose establish contact with the Russians. He had moved with these two boxes that you are mentioning, sir, which he was to use. He wanted to use to recreate another army and to fight, continue the fight. He went to Russia. He was received in Russia by the head of the Smersh, that was a counter-intelligence agencies headed by Viktor Abakumov, who was very close to Stalin personally. And there was his number two color people who received Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and General Shedei. They were taken to Omsk in Siberia, where the Russian government had shifted during wartime. And an embassy of the Azad Hind Sarkar had been established there already. This is where Netaji had gone. And then there he did 3 radio broadcasts on the 31-meter band. First was in December 1945. Second was on 1st January 46. And the last one was 18th February 1946, in which he spoke about what was happening in India then. These were recorded in Calcutta by the Intelligence Bureau, and they were put up to the governor, and of course they were shared all around. The British very well knew what was happening. The British then had 2 treaties with the Russians. One of the treaties was in 1941, November, and the other one was in 44. It was for intelligence sharing operations, to cooperate in classified secret intelligence operations. And under those, they asked for access to Netaji in the Siberian prison. Because by that time, Stalin, had been fed all sorts of stories that Netaji was with Hitler, he was with Mussolini, etc., etc. He had him put in prison. He had been put in prison, and our fear is that British interrogators were given access to torture him and prize as much information out of him. And at the end, he was murdered using a plastic bag to give him a fake kind of a heart attack. This is what we have done to the man who liberated us. This is what we have done to the man who liberated us. And I think we need to charge some people with murder. I would request you, sir, that the Mukherjee, Justice Mukherjee Commission, which was ordered by Prime Minister Vajpayee, when the report was put up, the Congress was back in power and they trash canned it. They refused to accept it. I think this deserves to be brought back before the parliament. Back before the parliament. How can it be just put in the trash can? On what basis? He's the only inquiry commission to have gone onto the spot in Taiwan. None of the other commissions of inquiry went to Taiwan. There are loopholes. That whole theory of the air crash is riddled with loopholes, but it was exploited. Sir, I think it is about time to do justice to the INA and to its leader, Netaji Subash Chandra Bose. We need to atone for complicity in murder, complicity in torture and murder as a people. And I think the least we can do is honor the remaining soldiers of the INA. After much trial and much begging, sir, we have gotten them on parade in 2019 at the Rajpath on Republic Day. This year, the bureaucracy ensured that they did not come again. Next year is the 125th the anniversary of Netaji. At least the least we can do is get them there. Behind India Gate, sir,
Sure.
there is an empty arch, a chhatri, where the statue of King George V was there. We have the war memorial just opposite. The most fitting tribute this country can pay to Netaji, the man who got you free, and in return, he had to suffer torture and betrayal. You see, we need to put his statue, a 6-foot statue, sir. We are not asking for a 1,000 feet high statue. We are asking for a life-size statue to be put in that empty canopy on Rajpath, not in Chavdi Bazaar. We don't want a statue in Chavdi Bazaar. We want a statue on the Rajpath next to the war memorial. I think this is the least we can do to atone as a people, to atone for the atrocities committed on that man, for that absolute stab in the back. Stab in the back. The people who took power were the quislings, were the collaborators. And this is what they did to him. When that letter came, when that note came from Russia, which you have just so ably described, so this is treachery. This is treachery of the highest order. We can't, as a people, live down this abominable treatment of that man. The least we can do is honor his remaining soldiers, and there are some of them still alive. At the age of 109, 110, Haryana's ghee works. And I went to the man, sir. He was 109, that soldier, and his family told me he was dying. So I told him, I said, Baba, aapko agla saal parade pe aana hai. Do you know, sir, that man has recovered in the hope that the country will get him on parade? In the hope that the country will get him back on parade.
Good.
That is the tenacity to will to live on and to see that the honor is redeemed. This is the least we can do, sir, because we let the British were ceremonially sent away, but Lord Mountbatten and the lady were retained to see that the INA doesn't come back to the Indian Army. Sir, we have a lot to atone for. I request you, sir, the first we can do is get the Mukherjee Commission back before Parliament. Get that empty canopy filled up with Netaji's statue. So I implore you, this soldier, because it hurts me to meet those dying soldiers.
On TV, I'm giving you assurance.
Yeah. Dr. Swamy, before you respond to General Bakshi, I thank General Bakshi for his wonderful facts which he has revealed. Dr. Arvind Chaturvedi has a question for both of you all.
Yeah.
धन्यवाद डॉक्टर स्वामी जनरल बख्शी, आप लोगों ने इतने अकाट्य तर्क प्रस्तुत किए हैं और इन अकाट्य तर्कों के माध्यम से आपने सिद्ध किया कि भारत माता के जो सच्चे सपूत नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस जो थे, उनकी दुर्घटना में 1945 में मृत्यु नहीं हुई थी। अब सवाल ये उठता है कि अगर 1945 में नेताजी की मृत्यु विमान दुर्घटना में नहीं हुई थी, उसके बाद नेताजी कहाँ गए? 1965 से लेकर 1985 तक उत्तर भारत में, विशेषकर उत्तर प्रदेश में, एक शख्स थे जिनका नाम था गुमनामी बाबा, जो पहले बस्ती जिले में रहते थे, बाद में वो अयोध्या में आ गए, फैजाबाद में, और उनके जीवन के पवित्र मोहन बोस और अनेक लोगों को जब उनकी 1985 में मृत्यु हुई तो उनके सामान को सहेज कर रख लिया गया, क्योंकि कुछ लोग कोर्ट चले गए थे ये सिद्ध करने के लिए कि यही नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस हैं। तो जो उनके बक्सों से सामान मिला, वो सारा सामान वो था जो नेताजी से संबंधित था। रोलेक्स की घड़ी थी, आजाद हिंद फौज की वर्दी थी, लेटर थे, अखबारों की कटिंग थी। तो आप दोनों हमारे दर्शकों को बताइए कि गुमनामी बाबा का इस रहस्य से क्या संबंध है?
Sir, would you like to start?
Well, I'll make a very short statement. I am privileged to have information that this was Gunami Baba was set up by Mr. Malik, who was the IB chief in Jawaharlal Nehru's time, to divert people's attention to where is Subhash Chandra Bose. It's most unlikely that Subhash Chandra Bose would come in a sane mind and be in hiding in incognito in India and not turn up in Delhi to stake his claim. So I never believed this story. I think that from the beginning it was a bogus story planted on us by Jawaharlal Nehru.
I'll just add to that, sir, that there was initially a Shaulmari Baba who had opened his ashram in Bengal. And they had collected people like Talwar. They were the spies detailed to shadow, to tail Netaji. The whole bunch of them had, established that bloody ashram, so-called ashram in Shaulmari Baba's ashram in Bengal. And he had started claiming, I am Netaji, I am Netaji. A whole lot of these exercises, I think, unfortunately, were done by the intelligence bureau of that era to cover up the people's anger, to give them a kind of a reassurance. Oh, actually, he was wo to sadhu vritti ke the, wo wapas aa gaye, he died a peaceful death, so that the anger of the people would not be directed against the government. I think it was a very false flag narrative building operation, and I don't think we should fall prey to that kind of a thing. As a military man, let me just give you a few facts. Very few people have escaped from the Siberian prisons. You understand? It is like being in the Siachen Glacier. Even if you get out of cell number 45, you can't survive more than a few days out in the open in the cold hell of Siberia at -40. What was the state of Netaji's health at that particular time? He was suffering from tuberculosis. I hope you know that. The ill treatment that the British had given him in their prisons, especially in Rangoon. He was unwell as it is. Despite that, he was soldiering on. For him to have survived, escaped an invasion, escaped across Siberia, across China, across Tibet, and then come to India as a military escape and evasion specialist, I don't think it is possible. Number one. Number two, it is absolutely out of character. If Netaji had come back to India,
Yes.
he was not scared of the British. The British could not silence this man. Was he so scared of Nehru that he would have kept absolutely quiet and in hiding and trembling? It is so easy for anybody to collect a lot of, memorabilia of that type and, binoculars and watches of that type and put them together. Frankly, I have my very serious reservations on this particular issue. I know a lot of scholars are working on this, and I would like to believe it is true. It gives you a bit of a hope that at least he had a peaceful end. But I think it may be precisely done with a very diabolical purpose of masking the truth. Masking the truth of torture and such a sad end for such a great hero. That is my take on this subject.
Dr. Swamy, would you like to add anything before we wind up our program?
You wanted to reply to the General Bakshi's earlier request, right, Dr. Swamy, about the
Memorial and
no, a report about the report.
Mukherjee Commission report to be considered.
Yes, I will move in Parliament that this should be placed on the table of the House and a full discussion to take place. I'll move in the matter. I've already made a commitment to General Bakshi when he was speaking.
Yeah, thank you. So, friends, with this we come to another interesting episode on Netaji Subash Chandra Bose. And
I'll interrupt you here. I'll interrupt you.
yeah,
I have one thing I have never said before, except to you privately, that my uncle married a Bengali lady who was a relative of Subhash Chandra Bose. The whole family of Subhash Chandra Bose knows that. They are a very distinguished family of doctors. And so I know that the Subhash Chandra Bose's family, half of them were bought over by either the Soviets or by the British. One of them became a Trinamool Congress MP also. Now back at he's always propagated that he died in Taiwan crash, and people because he is a relative. So beware of relatives of Subhash Chandra Bose.
what you mean is there are vested interest relatives in the Bose, but there are also other relatives who are active and who are.
Yes, for instance, our BJP vice president in Bengal, he's a fine person and he's very sensible and very but I am talking about, I mean, they have not, our party has not been enabled him to go around speaking on this issue. But the fact is that there are, I told you, I know the family extremely well, but these are the people who are projected all over the world. So that's why I am cautioning you that if you find a person who claims to be a direct descendant of Subhash Chandra Bose's family through his brothers, Subhash's brothers, be careful.
Okay, thank you, General Bakshi and Dr. Swamy for that interesting. Yeah, Ramesh, you have something?
No, I just wanted to thank Dr. Swamy and General Bakshi to bring this, because from my generation, we have not heard that much about Netaji. What is surprising, I live in America. We celebrate each and every soldier with so much of pride. What surprises me is to why would Prime Minister India defile a person who got freedom? It is amazing for me. It's a fascinating story. So I wanted to thank you for bringing this thing out for the general public.
Okay, thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, Arvind. And General Bakshi and Dr. Swamy, I once again thank you for this interesting episode on Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. The nation really requires many answers and has to hold this Nehru Gandhi Parivar responsible for what they have done to Subhash Chandra Bose. It is really shocking to just maintain the power of one family. Have tortured our icon like Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. There are numerous other mysteries. Hopefully, in the coming few weeks, we may even touch on those subjects. But I really salute General Bakshi and Dr. Swamy for keeping and fighting for these causes, because there are a lot of public men, politicians, military men for some crumbs of office or some positions. They always give up their fight. But here we have General Bakshi and Dr. Swamy who have kept the flag flying. Our younger generation should know what Netaji has done for us, and also what betrayal the Nehru Gandhi Parivar has done for this country. It's high time that a full investigation is ordered into all this and the nation knows the truth. So with this, we end today's program on Virat Hindustan Sangam channel, Words of Wisdom, Gyan Ganga. We'll come up with certain such interesting programs in the future. Just to remind our viewers that every day we are available at 8 p.m. for this program discussion with Dr. Swamy. I once again thank General Bakshi and Dr. Swamy for joining us live on this show today. Jai Hind, Dhanyavad, thank you.